Once McCarthy ascended to the chairmanship of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in 1953, his power to intimidate expanded exponentially. He called over 500 Americans to appear before the subcommittee in just 15 months. Many of these were university students, researchers, and academics. By the 1950s, universities had become repositories of political repression, not through McCarthy's direct action, but through the institution's internalization of his methods. Was this happening to Queen's University Belfast, transforming into agents of persecution? I'm Kiana Canada, and this is Mimicking McCarthyism, an examination of an obstruction of justice, uncovering a new iteration of McCarthyism in Belfast and how it silences Black American stories on the island. I want to apologize for my appearance in episode 14A. I've been dehydrated over the last few days, and that showed on my lips, and today I made sure to highlight my lips. So again, I sincerely apologize. Now we shift gears into more philosophically treacherous terrain. I need to establish a framework for understanding when intuition, that gut feeling, that primal recognition of wrongness, can serve as reliable epistemological foundation. Ethical intuitionism, in its classical form, asserts that fundamental moral truths are self-evident and knowable through direct apprehension by the understanding, without requiring discursive reasoning or inference. But there's a cognate philosophical principle that extends beyond ethics in the realm of threat assessment and institutional behavior. The recognition that certain patterns, once understood, can be identified without laborious proof. The philosopher G.E. Moore articulated a crucial principle. Basic truths cannot be broken down into simpler components. Just as black is simply not black, a primary quality requiring no further decomposition, certain observable behavior patterns are simply what they are, indicators of deception, recruitment tactics, and operational tradecraft. While in the McClay Library at Queen's University, Belfast, I encountered a peculiar man whose name begins with G. Because I don't know his last name, I will do my best to describe his appearance. He was white, older male, late 60s, perhaps early 70s, with a closely trimmed buzz cut that revealed gray, prickly hair. His face was lined, weathered by time. He sometimes wore glasses, and he carried with him something indescribable in his frame that suggested the life, perhaps, of a person spent indoors. His frame, not alarmingly so, but noticeably, carried a weight concentrated around his stomach, the physiology of someone whose desk work had accumulated more years than his exercise regimen could be compensated for. He arrived every single day, same time, same location, the second floor, at a solitary desktop computer position adjacent to the window. This juxtaposition seemed deliberate. He maintained sight lines to the political science section directly across from his position, particularly the international human rights law area, where he appeared to maintain fastidious attention. During our initial interaction, the older man spoke in a perfectly recognizable American accent. I made conversational comment noting the apparent American background. His response was immediate and remarkable. He switched his accent entirely. Claiming Northern Irish provenance, he adopted what he presented as an Irish accent. I must confess, I have never traveled beyond Belfast. My exposure to Irish accents represents a circumscribed sample. But I can offer this observation with confidence. What he produced bore no resemblance to any Irish linguistic pattern I have encountered. It sounded British, or rather, something between British or something else entirely. The switch happened instantaneously without the awkward transitions that normally characterize authentic accent acquisition. It was like watching someone flip a switch. Over several encounters spanning months, the old man approached me with printed materials. They were always the same category: American and Irish far-right ideological content. No balance presented. No intellectual counterargument to these materials, simply the materials themselves, handed to me with an implicit suggestion that I should read them. Was he attempting to radicalize me? I needed to be extraordinarily cautious about this assertion. Far-right recruitment operates through a well-documented pipeline: initial material distribution, gradual ideological escalation, personal relationship cultivation, and incrementally intensified recruitment pressures. The Yeoman engaged in precisely this initial phase, the unilateral direction of ideological material, always in one direction, always the same political orientation, represents a fundamental failure of intellectual reciprocity. A genuine intellectual engagement would involve exposure to counter-arguments, competing perspectives, evidence-based critiques. The material he provided exhibited none of these characteristics. I did not avoid opposing viewpoints for intellectual cowardice. I rejected these materials because they represented deliberately unbalanced information distribution from a man I did not know, a distribution pattern consistent with radicalization methodology, not intellectual exchange. I threw them away immediately, deliberately, but not where he could see. My discomfort escalated to concern. I reported this man to my head of school, Joan Loughrey, describing the man who offered me unsolicited far-right material to a student he did not know, coupled with behavioral anomalies which may be consistent with intelligence operative activity. The institutional response: nothing. Complete inaction. Subsequently, I approached Dr. Richard English at Queen's University, Belfast, and described my concerns to him. I expressed my belief that this man might be attempting to radicalize me. Based on our conversation, Dr. English initially inferred the possibility this man was connected to an American intelligence service. But when I clarified that I believed him to be Irish, operating on campus, the analytical framework shifted. But why? I must make the case that my intuition here is likely right, while conceding where intuition might fail, but then vigorously rebutting that presumption with evidence. The counter-argument is straightforward. I'm not I'm just a student, and I'm not trained in counterintelligence. My intuition could reflect a misinterpretation of innocent actions. However, consider what my intuition was responding to: accent switching under social pressure, documented as a deception indicator in bilingual or multilingual speakers, particularly when the switching occurs instantaneously without phonetic transition periods. Unilateral ideological material distribution. This is not intellectual exchange in how it functions. It's consistent with radicalization methodology in foreign intelligence recruitment tradecraft. Why would a man approach a student he did not know and hand them political journals and news articles that leaned far on one side? He was not part of a group nor a club at Queen's University, Belfast. Consistent, isolated positioning. The daily occupation of the same computer with sight lines to specific areas seemed consistent with surveillance or asset assessment patterns. These are not individual anomalies. They are convergent indicators, each of which independently might be explicable, but whose conjunctions suggest a coherent pattern. The intelligence community's own documentation confirms that foreign intelligence services place operatives on university campuses, posing as students or staff. But here's where the crucial distinction emerges. McCarthy's accusations were substantively unfounded claims designed to generate fear and conformity through allegations he knew to be false or unproven. McCarthy pointed to people and declared them to be communists, such as Black Americans and Chinese people, often without evidence and frequently despite contradictory information. My observation was rooted in my personal opinion, behavioral pattern recognition against documented operational tradecraft. Here's what concerns me the most about my own case. The institutional response was not merely indifferent, it was consistent with McCarthyism's own methodological framework. McCarthyism operated through institutional capture. When I reported a genuine concern about an attempt to radicalize, I expected institutional protection, investigation, clarity, institution accountability. The disciplinary proceedings that followed based on my sending an email to the embassy for guidance was met with Ireland's fetish for violence. As a result, I was compelled to terminate my contract with Queen's University, Belfast in August. I'm calling on students, faculty, and staff at Queen's University, Belfast to come forward. If this man approached you, if he offered you material attempting to manipulate you into altering your political beliefs and thoughts, if he seemed to cultivate an unusual political relationship with you, or if he incentivized your attention through payment or other material benefit, if his political questions extended beyond what seemed natural or appropriate for casual conversation or academic conversation, please come forward. This is not about McCarthy-era witch hunts. That's not what I seek to do. This is about institutional accountability. Higher education institutions deserve to know whether our academic institutions have been penetrated by external manipulation. Students deserve to know this as well. We deserve institutions that respond to these concerns with investigation, not with expulsion of the whistleblower. Come forward. Tell me your story. Help me to understand what happened at Queen's University, Belfast. Because if we don't demand institutional accountability, we simply recreate McCarthyism in a new form, less visible, but no less destructive. Thank you for watching Mimicking McCarthyism. I'll see you next episode.